What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming at y'all with another episode of the 2 Minute Drill today. We got a loaded episode. This one's probably going way over that time period. I told y'all these usually would last. We aim for about 10-20 minutes here on the 2 Minute Drill. But we have a huge topic here today, guys, and it has to do with the NFL draft. With pro days going underway, with mock drafts becoming a staple, there's new information every day on these quarterbacks, man. The most important position, the 49ers make a huge trade with the Dolphins to get up into the top three, and everyone's trying to guess what they're going to do. Are they going to go Mac Jones, the Nick Saban disciple who led the Crimson Tide to another national championship? Are they going to go Justin Fields? Where are the Jets going to go? Is that going to make a difference? We have so many questions, but me and Brandon have released our top 5 quarterbacks, but I'm going to break it down for you live here on the 2 Minute Drill. We're live on Twitch right now, so if you're watching this, let me know in the comments what you think about these prospects. And if you're watching this on YouTube on this awesome Wednesday, March 31st, man, comment down below what y'all think about each of these quarterbacks. Why do you love a certain prospect, or why do you think a certain one might be a bust? Let me know here. Let's get interacting. But let's kick it off here. And we kick off the list with the most recent national championship quarterback, Mac Jones, who led one of the most explosive air attacks in the country, led Devontae Smith to a Heisman Trophy. Jalen Waddle was a beast until he got hurt. John Mechie was balling out. Billingsley was a monster. Najee Harris was a beast through the air as well. He threw for over 4,400 yards, 41 touchdowns, guys, only 4 picks, and completed over 76% of his passes. That is amazing. I mean, what an outstanding season. And then you look at the previous year in limited action, he had over 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. So, you want to look at the pros of someone like Mac Jones. He was the most accurate quarterback in the country in short yardage passing, completing over 85% of his passes and throws under 10 yards. So that 1 to 9 yard range, man, those dump off passes, those underneath routes, this dude is, more accurate than anybody else, even in this class. It's amazing to see. And another thing, he has elite anticipation, elite timing in terms of what he can do with the ball. And he led the country. This probably is a shocking stat for y'all. In these deep analytic stats, he led the country in deep passing yards, which say what you want. It could be having Devontae Smith helps. It could be Steve Sarkisian scheming up these deep ball passes, but he did lead the country in deep passing yards. And so it shows his ability to push the ball up the field. But, as every prospect, especially one this low on my list at 5, there are some cons that come with him. I feel like compared to some of the other quarterbacks in this class, he has average arm strength compared to someone like a Trevor Lawrence, a Trey Lance, anyone else that you could put up there. Only one full year being quarterback one, that's kind of a tough sell for me. I know we have some other prospects who really only had one big year, but he really has only started one season with like 4 or 5 games on top of that in the 2019 season after Tua got hurt. Also, his athleticism, a little bit below average for this class. When you're looking at other players like Trey Lance, Justin Fields, even Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, Mac Jones is probably the least athletic quarterback of the bunch. And then the biggest question, the biggest con for me is, was it Mac Jones or was it Steve Sarkisian's scheme? Was it having Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, Najee Harris in the backfield, one of the best offensive lines in the country? Was it Mac Jones or was it all the other factors surrounding him? And also, it really doesn't hurt to have Nick Saban as your head coach and that defense on the other side of the ball where it's like, if we don't score here, it's going to be all right. And for each of these prospects, I have pro comps. And, I know people just like to give one pro comp. I kind of like to do a high-end pro comp and a low-end. So if everything goes right, this player lives up to his full potential, what is the high-end comparison? Or if everything goes wrong, it's a bust, what is their low-end? My high-end comparison for Mac Jones is Kirk Cousins, which is a respectable thing. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins. He's probably a top 15, borderline top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. He doesn't blow you away with arm strength, but he has enough talent to get it done. He can get your team to the playoffs, and I see that being Mac Jones. The low end, I've said this on another podcast. Don't call me out for picking the same school, but these quarterbacks kind of remind me of each other. The low end is AJ McCarron. He's a long time backup. He's talented enough to be in the league, but he's not going to lead your team. He probably isn't going to be quarterback one, but he'll be in the league for 5, 6, 7 years as a backup. You also could look at someone kind of like Matt Barkley out of, who's always kind of been a backup. He was a backup for the Bills for a while. So someone like that is pretty much what I could see his low end comparison. So we got the comment here on Twitch. Ready to see what you have to say about Trey Lance. All eyes were on him this season at North Dakota State, and he played horrible. Jones did it multiple times against the best competition in the country. I agree with that. And speaking of Trey Lance, he is my fourth quarterback here. And the reason I have him here, to be honest, is I think his ceiling is just a bit higher than Mac Jones is. I think Trey Lance, say what you will, is the biggest boom or bust prospect in this class. He can be one of the highest he could have been. He could be the star of this draft, or he could be a bust, and whoever ends up drafting him in the early rounds of the draft just absolutely, or the fans are going to have to, we're going to have to fire the head coach, to GM, all the scouts, everything. He has such a wide range of what I think he could be. Like the comment said there, only played in one game this past year. Wasn't spectacular. He had 1 touchdown and 2 picks, I believe. But the year before, 2019, over 2,700 yards passing, 28 touchdowns through the air, no turnovers in his junior year. That's great. I want to see what he does against better competition, but let's get to the pros first before we get into that. I think arm strength is the obvious one here. The kid has an elite arm in terms of what he can do, pushing the ball down the field, attacking at all levels on the field. And then you add that with his prototypical size and build. I mean, listen, for me, I didn't watch a lot of Trey Lance at first, but he's kind of came on my radar, later in 2019. I didn't think he was that big. This dude's like 6'4", 225. And I think his frame is big enough where you could add a little bit more to that, get him to 230, 235. And he keeps his athleticism there, and I think he's big, he's strong, and that contributes to his arm strength. And then also his decision-making. I think he has elite decision-making to go an entire year. I get it was at North Dakota State against low competition. Decision-making to throw no picks throughout the entire year is amazing. I think he puts the ball in good spots, but this leads us to some cons. As much as his decision making is up there, his accuracy is not where some of these higher prospects are. Even Mac Jones, I think, has much better accuracy than Trey Lance. He only completed around 66% of his passes, but he showed a lot of weaknesses in that one, showcase game, as they called it this year. I think he only completed about 50% of his passes. He ranked last, guys. So all 5 of these quarterbacks on my list, Trey Lance ranked last in terms of ball placement and with the advanced analytics stats. He's not going to throw people open. These guys are going to have to be open, and that really worries me in terms of next level, progressions and stuff like that. Because the NFL, you aren't going to have people running wide open. And with North Dakota State, they had more talent than a lot of their opponents. So it really makes me worry, can he throw people open? Based on college, I would say no. Another thing is he had limited passing attempts. He was a very protected passer. He only averaged around 18 attempts per game. It makes me worry. Can he carry one of these lower level NFL teams into the promised land, to a Super Bowl, into the playoffs, because he's going to have to throw more than 18 times per game. I really want to see what happens if he has to throw it 30, 40, 50 times in a game, which is bound to happen in the NFL. Now, if you land somewhere like the 49ers, this might not be a huge thing with some of the running backs they have, the O-line protection, some of the good wide receivers, and that defense that can bail them out. But what happens if he lands, let's say the Jets take a flyer or something crazy happens? Man, he's going to have to throw way more than 18 times per game. And then, we had the viewer mention the competition. That is my biggest worry. did he face enough competition at North Dakota State to really be able to take anything away from that 28 touchdowns, no interception season he had? I would argue maybe, maybe not. Carson Wentz comes out of North Dakota State, number 2 pick in the country. I mean, in the NFL draft, and he has not lived up to the potential. Like, he's had some good games, a good half season or two. The injuries are there because in North Dakota State, he didn't get hit, similar to Trey Lance. He had the best talent. The Eagles never had the best talent. So it makes me wonder what happens. And yes, if the Broncos get Trey Lance, he is definitely cooked. I would agree with that. I don't think that'd be a very good fit, but my pro comp, I don't want y'all to overreact here because I don't think he's going to hit this high point in terms of what he could be. But if everything goes right, he finds a way to start throwing people open. He keeps his athleticism. He puts on a little bit more weight. I think his high NFL comp is Russell Wilson. That sounds crazy, but he's a bigger Russell Wilson, and I think he has that same athleticism. He has that same pocket presence, everything like that. But for me, I think he's closer. I think he's closer to the low end. I didn't say Cam. I did not say Cam, but I think he's closer to the low end here. And hear me out here. I think he's a more athletic Taysom Hill at the low end. I don't know if that accuracy that ball placement thing is going to allow him to prosper as a quarterback prospect. But this kid is athletic enough to be a go-to Wildcat type quarterback, a specialized, utility type quarterback. So I think the low end, if everything goes wrong, he ends up being just a more athletic Taysom Hill. And I think he's going to fall somewhere in between that, maybe a little bit above Taysom Hill. But if everything goes right, I think he could be a Russell Wilson type player in the NFL, which I don't know if he'll get to that. But that brings me to my number 3 player, guys. And I really have 2A and 2B. These next 2 prospects, I go back and forth all the time on who to include second, who to include third. But ultimately, I've decided to go with Justin Fields at 3 from Ohio State. Leader of the Ohio State Buckeyes these past 2 years, led them to the playoffs twice, and was a 2-time, Heisman finalist. 67% completion percentage, over 5,000 yards, 63 passing touchdowns, and 9 picks over these last 2 years. Like I said, 2-time Heisman finalist, led the Buckeyes to their first national championship appearance since Zeke was there. And there's a lot of pros here. There really is with Justin Fields. First, I think he has elite accuracy. His ball placement is on another level. He ranks at some of the top of the country in terms of throwing players open. Where does he put the ball where the wide receiver can only get it? Justin Fields can do this almost better than anybody in this class. And that leads into his decision-making, also a big pro for me. Only 18 turnover-worthy plays, according to Pro Football Focus, in 2 seasons at Ohio State. That's amazing. I mean, especially when you look at the defenses he played against. Listen, average fans are going to say, oh, he played in the Big Ten, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Iowa. Say what you want about Michigan. They had some defensive dogs over there. He played some of the best defenses in the country. He played that Clemson defense twice. And I think to only have 18 turnover-worthy plays is a respectable number. And then this is where we get into kind of, the really big pros for me. One is athleticism outside the pocket. And what I mean by this is he's fast enough to beat linebackers, average speed linebackers, and some DBs with the speed. He ran like a 4.4 today. But he also has the size and physicality to run over smaller defensive backs who try to meet him in the hole. He can make defenses pay who don't honor his athleticism with a spy or running contain or something like that. Justin Fields is so athletic, and I think he's going to make big jumps for whatever team gets him in athleticism, because he's going to get drafted to a team that probably doesn't have a lot of weapons. And so that athleticism outside the pocket is going to be huge. And then the final one, this one's going to go for a prospect later, but I think Justin Fields comes from a winning pedigree. Only lost 2 games since the start at Ohio State, won back-to-back Big Ten championships. Plus, he got recruited and spent a year with Kirby Smart at Georgia, which is a winning program. He's been in back-to-back winning cultures. He was at a winning culture in high school. This kid comes from a winning pedigree. And listen, if there's something you can't teach, is how to teach a player how to win. And I don't want to have to teach my quarterback how to win. Justin Fields can win at every level. And so I think bringing that winning pedigree into one of these franchises who, when you got a top 5 pick, you don't win very, very often. He can bring that winning mentality into the locker room. And I think a lot of the veterans are going to respect him for that. There are some cons, though. My first con, reading coverages and processing speed. We got a comment here. New England has plenty of weapons. Fields will be fine with New England. I actually agree with this. I think New England would be the perfect fit. They're going to have to trade up, though. They're not going to get them at 15. So I think they're going to probably have to try to trade to 4 and hope the 49ers make that mistake of going with Jones there. But, back to the cons, I think reading coverages and processing speed is where he really struggles. He's slower than some of these other prospects at recognizing what the defense is doing and making those split-second decisions. And he gets locked up on that, who he wants to get the ball to on every play, which really hurts him in this processing, making quick snap judgments during a play. And then kind of jumping off of that, blitz recognition was a real problem for Fields. He wasn't under pressure much because he had the best offensive line in his conference, but advanced analytics, I was looking at, showed that his time to make a decision, time to throw, increased significantly when under pressure. He lets that pressure get to him. He fails to make adjustments before the snap there, and so he's kind of, I guess, freewheeling after the play, trying to get away from it, and that's not going to work in the NFL. Northwestern laid the blueprint on how to get after Fields. Get after him, bring those delayed blitzes, those disguised blitzes. It's going to force him into uncomfortable throws, and it's going to force turnovers. And Indiana kind of did it down the stretch in their game early in the season when they made that big comeback with Michael Penix. But my pro comp here, I'm probably going to make some of the viewers upset here on the high end, low end. The high end, I think he's Cam Newton without the injuries. I mean, people can say what they want about Cam Newton. He won an MVP, led the team to a Super Bowl. Justin Fields has that same potential. Justin Fields has that same athleticism out of the pocket. He's faster than Cam Newton. Might not be as big, but I think he's just as physical. I think Cam Newton, when he doesn't, without the injuries, it's kind of what Justin Fields' high end is. Low end, I'm gonna take it back to Oregon. Marcus Mariota. I think that's the low end for Fields. He can be a starter, but I think Marcus Mariota is not going to be a Pro Bowler, not going to be a franchise quarterback, but I think Fields could be just the average starter in the NFL. I don't think he'll have the injury history that Mariota has had at times, or any of the major problems. I don't know if he'll get benched like Mariota, but I think Marcus Mariota is, if everything goes wrong for Justin Fields, but Cam Newton in his prime is probably the high end for Fields for me. And then I want to get to 2A here. Zach Wilson, BYU, the Mormon Manziel himself, which is my favorite nickname of college football. He set the world on fire last year in 2020. Over 72% of his passes completed, thrown for over 3,600 yards, 32 touchdowns, only 3 picks. That's a huge jump. And I'm going to get to this later in this segment on Zach Wilson. The last 2 years, he had only completed 63% of his passes, and he threw 12 picks and only had a passer rating of 84 in 2019. So he was just kind of like a surprise breakout player last season. And some of the pros. Listen, I know I talked about it with Trey Lance. I'm going to classify this more as arm talent for Zach Wilson, more so than arm strength. You can call it what you want. It doesn't matter to me. Wilson can make every throw from every arm angle, and he can attack every inch of the field from any position on the field. He can launch a ball a million yards. We saw his pro day. I don't want to put too much stock into this, but the film can show you he can throw off balance. He can throw off one foot. He can throw from inside, outside the pocket, under pressure. He can launch that ball, and I think that's his biggest strength, is that he can just get the ball out of his hands. And this one is a strength, but I want to see how it translates in the NFL, and that's his pocket presence. He has the amazing ability to sense pressure and escape the pocket immediately and make a play. There's some plays on his highlight reel that it doesn't even make any sense on how he escapes the pocket, escapes the blitzes, and makes a play downfield with either his legs or his arm. Now the backside of this that I feel like people aren't talking about is, has he really faced an elite pass rush? Has he faced that SEC pass rush, that Big Ten pass rush, the ACC pass rush, where those defensive ends? I mean, is he getting run down by Gregory Rousseau? Is he getting run down by a Christian Barmore from Alabama? Like, has he faced that elite edge pass rusher, that elite defensive tackle, bringing pressure right up to your front door, up the middle? Can he do that against the best of the best? That's to be seen. But right now, I'm putting pocket presence into his pro category. And the other one, it kind of goes along with the first one, is just his throwing motion and in his quickness of his release. He probably has one of the quickest releases in this class, and he could help his ability to get the ball off under pressure. He has an amazing throwing motion, and I think that's what allows him to make throws all over the field, especially when he can keep his feet set in the pocket and push the ball downfield. Those are my three pros. Now, the cons. The biggest con, I had a whole episode comparing Wilson and Trevor Lawrence when we first started the 2-minute drill about a month or two ago. And the question is the 2019 version of Wilson what we're going to see more often, or is the 2020, season more what we're going to see with Zach Wilson? I mean, we saw Wilson absolutely struggle through 2019. He struggled with accuracy, he struggled with turnovers, but all of these things seem to just up and disappear in 2020. I got a big question on whether Wilson's able to replicate the 2020 season year in and year out. And what is his true potential? That's to be seen. And then the biggest thing, I know, our listeners agree here, the competition. He played against weak competition for most of his career, and he played with the talent, surplus almost. And what I mean by that is he always had the most talented team on the field. And it's going to cause me to have a little bit of concern about how he will handle the adversity of playing big-time talented teams. I mean, guys, that Coastal Carolina game, whether you want to say it was a one-time blip, whether you want to say it was just a bad game for him, it happened. He looked outmatched by a Coastal Carolina defense that isn't even going to have probably a top 4-round pick. And it really causes me to question what his potential is going to be at the next level when he has to carry, the Jets into Foxborough, when he has to carry the Jets against the Chiefs, when he has to carry the Jets against the Steelers. Is he going to be able to lift up the teammates and play with a talent deficit? I don't know, and that's to be seen. But in terms of a pro comp, I think the high end, if everything goes right for Wilson, I think his high end is Matthew Stafford. I don't want to hear the Patrick Mahomes comparisons. I don't think he's Patrick Mahomes. He's not. I really just don't see it. I see Matthew Stafford with the arm strength, the arm talent, the ability to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But I don't see that ability, just like Stafford, to pick up a franchise and carry them to the promised land. And so that's why I'm putting Stafford here instead of Mahomes. And on the low end, I think he's a Sam Darnold. I think he's a multi-year starter. Everyone, you see the people like Colin Cowherd still saying Sam Darnold is an elite quarterback. He just needs some help. I think we could get that with Zach Wilson, where it's like he goes to the Jets. He's talented, but struggles at times because he has no help. And everyone's like, oh, get him out of there. Get him out of there. He needs this. He needs that. I can see Sam Darnold being the low end for Zach Wilson. And for Trevor Lawrence, everyone knows he's number one here. For me, I've been vocal about it. I've been saying to stop comparing Fields and him, stop comparing Zach Wilson and him. And for me, I think he should be on his own list. He's a 3-time college football playoff appearance quarterback, a national champion. He's thrown for over 10,000 yards in his career, 90 passing touchdowns, 17 picks. While completing over 66% of his passes, 2-time Heisman finalist, national champion, 3-time ACC champion. We got a comment here about Wilson. If you're the Jets, do you take a 1-year wonder at quarterback over a quarterback who has been excellent year in and year out? While Wilson struggled 2 years ago and is in his only semi-tough game this year, fields through 50 touchdowns and 2 picks, I believe, last year. Yeah, I think it was 2 or 3. I think that third one is what lost him the game at Clemson. And he led OSU to a natty appearance. I actually agree with this. If I'm the Jets, I think that second pick's real particular. Like, it's really hard. It's like, do you want to go with? You're going to have questions about Fields. You're going to have questions about Wilson. But for me, with the Jets in my last mock draft, I had them taking Fields over Wilson. As much as I have Wilson ranked over him, I feel like Fields has that winning pedigree that can bring in, like I said, and kind of light up that locker room. And I think with the offensive line issues that we've seen with the Jets, I think Fields is going to fit what they need better right now than Wilson. But for me, I would probably go with Fields if I was the Jets. I think Wilson would fit better in San Francisco anyway. But we'll see there. I kind of agree with that comment though, that I don't think Wilson is a surefire pick there at number 2. And in my mock draft, I had Fields going there, even though I ranked Wilson a higher rated quarterback in my opinion. But we get through all these accolades with Trevor Lawrence. I just talked about Heisman finalist, national champion, 3-time conference champion. The pros are lengthy, man. We could have a whole episode about how I feel about Trevor Lawrence. But arm strength for me is number 1. He has the ability, just like some of the other prospects we talked about, to make the throw all over the field at every level. And for me, I think his pocket presence is what separates him from some of these other quarterbacks. I really think his pocket presence, he has the best ability of any prospect in moving and manipulating the pocket. We see it with Aaron Rodgers. We see it with Tom Brady. We saw it with Peyton Manning. Even if you get pressure, he can move the pocket around, put his offensive linemen in positions to succeed on one-on-one blocks. I think that's where he separates. Yes, Zach Wilson's great at getting out of the pocket and making a play. But for me, Trevor Lawrence manipulates the pocket and has the football IQ that the other prospects don't have. That's why he's more NFL ready. And the number one thing, man, for me also is the sneaky athleticism of Trevor Lawrence. Y'all can talk about Justin Fields running a 4.4. Trey Lance is going to dominate it. Zach Wilson, hyper athletic too. But ask Ohio State and Notre Dame, Ohio State from last year, Notre Dame from this year, about how hard it is to defend Trevor Lawrence when he takes up off the middle or gets into open field. He outran everyone for 60-plus yards, including DBs, running backs, linebackers, everyone. He outran everyone for 60 yards twice in that college football playoff game. I mean, he balled out. This kid has a sneaky athleticism about him. I think he's more athletic than you see someone like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. He has more of like that sneaky Aaron Rodgers ability to get out and manipulate the pocket. And then I talked about this with Fields. This is where Lawrence really succeeds for me. The winning pedigree he comes from, 34-2 at Clemson. His one loss came in a national championship against a historically great LSU team where some people are saying that was the greatest football team of all time in college football. And he had the lead going in to the second quarter. His other loss came against Ohio State this year, in which Justin Fields played the best game of his career, throwing like 6 touchdowns. Then you go back to high school, 52-2 in high school in the competitive Carterville, Atlanta type area in Georgia. And he also included a 41-game win streak. That is just insane to me. And you can't teach it. Like I said with Fields, you cannot teach winning. You can't teach leadership. And you saw Lawrence take that leadership role on his team with the Black Lives Matter movement, with the pay to play thing, with the COVID cancellations. He took a leadership role everywhere. And for me, I would have to say Trevor Lawrence. That's what separates him from other prospects. Cons. You want to look at cons. I get it. He forces throws sometimes. And watching this film, listening to, experts and things, looking at the advanced analytics, he fails to give up on plays a lot. And I think it's due to his confidence that he has the ability to make plays. He believed in his wide receivers that, man, if I throw this ball in this double coverage, Powell or Amari Rodgers or Justin Ross, they're just going to go get it. And sometimes they didn't, or he overlooked, Kyle Hamilton lurking underneath in the ACC championship is one throw I could think of this year. He must learn when to throw it away, understand that, okay, yes, you have all that talent, but if you just get us a second down, that talent's going to serve us a lot better at 2nd and 10 after a throwaway than it is you throwing a pick, and now our defense has to go out here on a short field and stop them. That's going to be a football IQ thing I need to see him improve on. And this also kind of goes hand in hand with sometimes he does lock down on his first read. He always locks in on wide receiver one, but he showed an ability to kind of improve that throughout the year. And you saw it when Justin Ross went down this year. He didn't really lock down as much this year because I don't think he had a true go-to wide receiver one option this year. You saw him do it with T. Higgins a little bit. You saw him do it with Justin Ross at times. But if he doesn't have that go-to wide receiver, I think this will be a mute point. I think this is something that you can work on and train out as he grows as a player. And I think the biggest thing we do with Lawrence is we forget a lot of with other prospects too. We forget that these guys are just kids, man. They have 3-4 years of college football. Once they get into an NFL room, I think you're going to see who is coachable, who can improve the most, and that's what really works for me. And for pro comp, the high for me, I've seen people say Trevor Lawrence can't really have a pro comp because he's so unique. I disagree. He's a more athletic Peyton Manning to me is this high thing. This is if everything goes right, no injuries, he gets in a good scheme, gets in a good system like Manning did. I think he could be Peyton Manning with a bit more of athleticism. And the low end for me is Andrew Luck. He's very talented. He gets stuck on a team with bad O-line, bad weapons, but he still puts up stats, carries that team to the playoffs every few years. And then he might have some injury problems because he gets hit so much. Something like that would have to slow him down for me. So I think his low end is Andrew Luck. And so, guys, let me know what y'all think, man. Got a few comments here. What's up, man? Appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to subscribe. Appreciate you here, man. And I appreciate all y'all for tuning in, man. But this is a wrap on the 2-minute drill. We're going to be breaking down these positional prospects, every few episodes when kind of college football news slows down a little bit. So we're going to have running backs probably later this week. But guys, make sure to subscribe here on Twitch if you're watching. If you're watching this tomorrow on YouTube, March 31st, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're up over 60 subscribers. So once we hit 100, we're going to pick 5 random subscribers from our YouTube channel, do a big merch giveaway. You can find us Bluebloods CFB podcast on there. The Bluebloods CFB on Twitch. Go ahead and follow us there too. All our social media has been scrolling across the bottom. We'll be back. We'll wrap up our Big 10 and 31 days with Iowa tomorrow, the last one, and we kick off our Big 12 and 30 days with Kansas State on Friday. So, guys, make sure to subscribe, like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see y'all tomorrow.